Josh Duggar, who is known for being part of the fundamentalist Baptist family featured on the TLC show 19 Kids and Counting, has been a shady character, to say the least, who over the years has been exposed for being on cheating website Ashley Madison, for molesting his sisters when they were children, and now he has been arrested for possession of CP. The more we learn about him, honestly, the worse he gets. And I'm not normally one to throw around insults, but I think it's safe to say this is a disgusting man. Like, his actions are revolting, and it's something very, very important that we need to talk about today. Now, this is going to be a difficult video, I'm not gonna lie. I've been working on this a while, and I've had to keep taking very, very, very long breaks with this because it's emotional and it's difficult to read about and hear about and see, and it's difficult to talk about as well. So, you know, I absolutely need to add a content warning in here because we are going to be talking about some really difficult topics, especially surrounding children and child abuse. And so I completely understand if people can't deal with watching this video or don't want to hear it, or they have to watch it in parts or take breaks. Absolutely fine. You do what you need to. Don't worry about it. Don't apologize. Just put your needs first. That said, while it's a difficult topic, it's a very important one to talk about because this man was a public figure for so long. His family were public figures for so long. His father even ran for a Senate seat. Like, he could have been in politics, and his dad is a huge part of the problem as well, as we're going to speak about in this video. And he and his family let him get away with this for so many years, and he has never really faced any real consequences for his actions until now. And even now he's out on bail, so it's like, who really knows what's gonna happen? There's a lot of things we can talk about here. Why he got away with it for so long, how the kind of fundamentalist religions often enable people like this is a big topic to discuss. How his family is reacting to it now is something to discuss. I think just most importantly, just flat out condemning his actions and not making excuses, and just showing him for the piece of crap that he is and making sure that he's never allowed to be around children ever again. That's, I think, the main thing to discuss in this video. And so with that in mind, let's jump into this. I'll split it up into chapters because it's going to be quite heavy. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of parts to this story. So if you want to just hear about a certain thing, I will leave chapter markers down in the description below, and you can jump to the bits in the video that you're interested in. So the Duggars are a family known for starring in the TLC show 19 Kids and Counting, in which they share their family life. They talk about how they're all devout Baptists who care about faith and purity and having millions of kids. It's barely even an exaggeration, seriously. The Duggars are part of what is called the Quiverfull Movement, which is basically a lot of fundamentalist Christians who promote having lots and lots of kids because they know that the easiest way to spread their religion to the future generations is just to indoctrinate kids as young and early as possible. If you have as many indoctrinated children as possible, then they will go on to have as many indoctrinated children as possible, and soon the whole world is overrun by these little indoctrinated babies. It's a lot easier to convert a kid or indoctrinate a kid than it is to try and convince an adult of your point of view. I try not to make Nazi comparisons too often, but it is very reminiscent of how the Nazis would encourage women to have as many children as possible. They had their whole like what was it? I don't speak German. It's the one that basically is like children church kitchen or something, that encourage women to stay in the kitchen, go to church, and have lots of babies. And then as soon as these kids were born, they would be made or encouraged to join the Hitler Youth as soon as possible, which basically taught all these little kids to be little Nazis too. I don't know if I'm explaining this right, but basically kids are less likely to question your authority. Kids are less likely to answer back. Kids are less likely to pick faults in your arguments. And if you teach them from a young age that what you're saying is right and that they need to teach other people this and spread it and have more children to teach them it, they're more likely going to do it. As many of you know, one of the big things I've spoken about on my channel since the very, very beginning, the very early days when I started making videos in like 2017, I think, God, that's a long time ago now, I feel old, is these fundamentalist Christian families, or rather the ones who push their way of living as the only way to live and who very actively shame anyone and everyone else who lives a different way. It's important to note that despite being an atheist myself, I'm not anti-theist or anti-theist. I'm not against religion in general. I believe that people should and can be allowed to practice and believe whatever religion they want. That's fine. And I also believe that people should have the choice to live their lives however they want. And while I'll never complain about people choosing their own lifestyle, I will complain about them teaching harmful lifestyles to others, encouraging others to live a harmful life, shaming others for the lives they lead, and so on, especially when it can be dangerous and damaging. And as you all know, I'm very critical of childhood indoctrination in all its forms. You know, the fact that women like Girl Defined, for example, choose to be like stay-at-home wives and mums and whatever, like, not a problem. You do you. Let them do what they want. But the minute they start saying, you're not a real woman unless you live like us, the minute they start shaming women who have careers or identify as feminists or enjoy sex outside marriage, that's when I have a problem. It's the shaming, it's the everything, which is why a family like the Duggars, it's not a problem that she wants to pump out 19 kids and, oh my god, her poor girl bits, like, that poor woman. But her choice. I'm not here to shame it. However, with them, it's the hypocrisy that gets to me. And there are other issues, and their whole lifestyle is dangerous and damaging, and we will get onto this as the video progresses. I will absolutely admit that, like, ever since I started my channel, I mean, it's been like 4 years now, and my views have evolved and changed and grown, hopefully for the better, since I started making content. And I think I've matured a lot as a person. I think now some of my views are a lot more nuanced. Now I try and be a lot more considerate. I mean, I still slip up, everyone does, but I definitely think I've grown. But one thing that has not changed at all, right since the very beginning, and I don't think it ever will, is that I believe we need to be raising kids with open minds, encouraging them to question everything. And this includes questioning and critically analysing the beliefs of their parents, especially when it comes to religion. I don't think I'm ever going to change my mind on that. And the thing is, if you as a parent are secure in your beliefs and you are so certain that you're right and that there's no other possible answer, then it should be okay for your kid to question you and your beliefs and ask about things they don't understand and explore other options. Because if you're so certain that your belief is right, then surely by asking questions and following their own path, they'll still come back to your way of thinking anyway, won't they? If you're so certain you're right. And let's say a kid does question your beliefs and they go on their own path and they figure things out for themselves and they come to a different conclusion to you, a different set of beliefs, then that is something worth discussing with your kid. Because maybe your kid's wrong, maybe you're wrong, maybe you're both a little wrong, maybe you're both a little right. And by discussing these things with your kid as they get older and talking through each other's beliefs with them, that's how you both grow and learn and understand each other. Anyway, the Quiverfull Movement doesn't stand for any of that. They're very much indoctrinate the kids and all that stuff. No questioning, have to follow these rules exactly, blah, 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 blah. If you do want to find out more about the Quiverfull Movement in particular, there's a great book I recommend called Quiverfull: Inside the Christian Patriarchy Movement by Catherine Joyce. And there's some fantastic little bits in there. The Duggars only get a slight mention. There's a whole chapter on the Pearls, which you all know is a family I've spoken about a lot, thanks to their guide to child abuse and created to be his helpmeet book and all sorts of stuff like that. I'm currently in the middle of reviewing a fiction book by Debbie Pearl, which is bizarre. It's something else. Basically, Islamic terrorists are stalking a Christian publishing company who are making miracle jam. It's something else. Anyway, back to the book Quiverfull. In it, she writes about the women in these Quiverfull families in the introduction by saying that the biblical woman wears modest feminine dress and avoids not only sex, but also dating before marriage. She doesn't speak in church or try to have any authority over men. She doesn't work outside the home, but within it, she is a tireless centre, homeschooling her kids, keeping house, cooking bulk meals, helping her husband run a business or ministry. She checks in with her husband as she moves through her day to see if she's fulfilling his priorities for her. When he comes home, she is a submissive wife who bolsters him in his role as spiritual and earthly leader of the family. She understands it is her job to keep him sexually satisfied at all times, and that it is her calling as a woman to let those relations result in as many children as God wants to bless her with. She raises families of 8, 10, and 12 children, and she teaches her daughters to do the same. Basically the Duggar family right there. Catherine also points out that in these families, women should accept every child as an unconditional blessing and that family planning is immoral. She goes on to briefly talk about the Duggars and their TV show, even though it's only a brief mention, a couple of paragraphs. But she says reality TV shows and lifestyle cable channel specials, all of which camply depict the Quiverfull life as like regular motherhood, but amplified. More kids, more laundry, more merriment. Which is honestly kind of the whole crux of the issue here, and the issue that I have with programs like TLC's 19 Kids and Counting, or the repackaged version now, Counting On. They portray this life in the Quiverfull movement to the public in such an innocent way. It's all, oh, look at us, we're such a wholesome family, we're just kind of quirky having so many kids, but we're really like pure and good and moral, and it just glosses over all the deeper issues and disguises any darkness and trauma and whatever. Both the subtler, more insidious issues like the control over women and the childhood indoctrination and just like all sexual shaming in general and all that kind of thing. But it also covers up the bigger, more intense, more dangerous issues like Josh's actions when he molested his sisters and other girls. So let's meet the Duggars. So the Duggar family are Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar and their 19 children. Hope you're ready for this. Josh, Jana, John David, Jill, Jessa, Ginger, Joseph, Josiah, Joy-Anna, Jedediah, Jeremiah, Jason, James, Justin, Jackson, Johanna, Jennifer, Jordan Grace, and Josie. So glad they didn't begin with S, otherwise I would have been struggling. So all the names begin with J, just like the dad. It is a mouthful. Also, maybe a little hint of narcissism there on his part, but let's not comment on that too much. Their show initially started as 17 Kids and Counting, ended as 19 Kids and Counting as the family grew. Initially ran for 9 seasons beginning in 2008, but was cancelled after the news about Josh and his molesting came to light in around 2015. It was then basically just repackaged and rebranded and carried on being made, but with more of a focus on the older siblings instead. So the ones like the girls, so like Jessa, Ginger, and whoever else. The story of the Duggar family really begins much earlier though, back in 2002. Father Jim Bob Duggar, or I think his actual name is James Richard Duggar, he ran for a Republican Senate seat but lost the election. And he ran his campaign pushing some pretty extreme values, which we can still see on his website thanks to the beauty of internet archiving. It's a treasure. His website claims that Jim Bob is a Christian family man who believes we need to return our country to the traditional values upon which our nation was founded. So, colonialism? Slavery? I just, as an Englishwoman, I don't understand how the history of America and its founding is so romanticized. Sorry. He has proved that he will stand for what is right even when confronted by political pressure. You can rest assured that not only is Jim Bob Duggar the only candidate that will so clearly say what he believes, but he is also a candidate that you can be certain will do what he says. Apparently he cares about strengthening families and protecting all children after conception. He goes on to elaborate saying that he wants no central standards for education and wants to encourage more homeschooling by writing, "I support the downsizing of and eventual elimination of the Department of Education. Why should we send our tax dollars to Washington and have them come back with strings attached? It should play no role in educational policy." And then he goes on this huge rant that basically all comes down to the fact that he doesn't want a centralized curriculum that is fact-checked by experts. It's kind of hard to indoctrinate your children when science is in the way. However, his biggest claims and a huge portion of the website comes down to his anti-abortion views. He is thoroughly against it in all cases, including when the victim has been raped. He writes, "If a woman is raped, the rapist should be executed instead of the innocent unborn baby. Adoption is an option. Abortion has been and always will be the destruction of an innocent child," which you all know my views on pro-lifers. I'm thoroughly pro-choice, but there are several other videos I've made out there explaining that and why and where my views stand and where I draw these lines and abortion laws and all sorts of stuff. Lots of biology to back it up. That's all out there if you want to go look at it. It's not what we're going to be talking about today. But this statement about the rapist should be executed then goes on to where he says, "Rape and incest represent heinous crimes, and as such, they should be treated as capital crimes. Now, I think we can all agree rape is bad. I don't agree with capital punishments, but that's just me. The hypocrisy comes when you consider that at the exact same time that Jim Bob was running this campaign and claiming that people who rape and commit incest should be killed, he was also covering up the fact that his own son, Josh, had been incestuously molesting his younger sisters and some other unnamed girl. Now, this didn't all come out until later, but all of this initially happened in 2002 and 2003 when Josh was 14. And we're going to be talking about this in a bit more detail now. Like I say, this bit can get quite difficult, so if you want to skip ahead to the next section, the timestamps will be in the description below. In 2006, the police received an anonymous call telling them about Josh's actions molesting his siblings and another girl a few years prior. In this call, the caller claimed that the family is not willing to tell anyone this unless they find out. It also details how the family told this particular individual making the call about a time 3.5 years ago when Josh was inappropriately touching underage girls, which we now know includes his sisters. And these inappropriate touchings, the molesting, it happened while his siblings and this other girl were asleep, but also outside of the house when they were awake, and on other occasions, like including when he was like teaching the kids to read and stuff. Around this time in 2006 as well, the family was supposed to be interviewed by Oprah, but this was cancelled after a woman emailed the show to warn them about the Duggars. The email read, or at least some extracts of it, are, before you air the Duggar family from Arkansas with redacted, you need to know the truth. They're not what they seem to be. Redacted has molested redacted while redacted was sleeping, and the parents had been hiding this secret for a long time. Jim Bob lies to his church and his friends to make him look good. Following both the call and this email, which was also reported to the police brought in Jim Bob and Michelle for questioning, where Jim Bob in particular actually admitted that Josh had come to him very upset and admitted to molesting his child siblings way back in 2002. To quote the police report, Josh told James, meaning Jim Bob, that this had occurred 4 to 5 times as of March 2002. To quote the police report, Josh told James, meaning Jim Bob, that this had occurred 4 to 5 times as of March 2002 when Josh would have been 14. And then he admitted to doing it again in July 2002 and March 2003 when Josh was 15. So this wasn't just a one-time thing, this was a repeated behaviour. This was an ongoing pattern that the parents were aware of and kept allowing to happen. The police report tells us that after these incidents, Jim Bob had met with the elders of his church and told them what was going on. They wanted to put him in a treatment program, but apparently they were concerned that their son would be, and I quote, exposed to other offenders and things they did not want him exposed to if he went to like a real treatment program with like real psychiatrists and help at like an actual real accredited hospital. So one that was suggested was called Piney Ridge at Vista Hospital, but apparently they were like, no, we don't want him there because something, like it's too legit, basically. I don't know, I'm sorry, but at this point, your son is a literal predator and danger to children, and he is physically hurting children. Like, I don't think there's much worse he can be exposed to make him sink any lower, is there? Stop thinking about, like, protecting his religious beliefs and, like, I know what they were thinking. They were like, oh, well, we don't want him, like, getting a secular education. We don't want him watching TV. We don't want him doing these normal kid things, blah, blah, blah. We don't want him hanging around people from non-fundamentalist Baptist families. That's what they were thinking. They were thinking about the indoctrination. But when your son is literally hurting children, screw that stuff. It doesn't matter. What matters is that he gets treatment, and the best possible treatment as soon as possible to stop this behavior immediately and prevent him from hurting anyone else. That's what should matter, not your ongoing indoctrination. It blows my mind a bit. Anyway, instead of a legit treatment program, they sent him to a place called Little Rock because it was run by Christians. And by run by Christians, I mean it was a house building company run by a friend of Jim Bob's. Yeah. So we now know that this wasn't a proper treatment or rehabilitation program at all. Josh was sent there for 3 months and he did a lot of physical labor. He helped build a house and that's about it. it wasn't affiliated with any police or proper accredited mental health professionals. Josh received no real counselling. It was just he lived on a farm with a friend of Jim Bob's for 3 months and then came back, and they let him carry on like nothing happened. Jim Bob also admitted to talking to a friend at the local police department, I think, or they said like state troopers. I'm assuming that's police. I don't really know how American police systems work. But basically, this guy that they spoke to at the police department, he was just a friend of Jim Bob's. And according to this one, I read the police report. Apparently this guy worked with like car dealers and like making sure they kept to laws or something. And that's who they went to talk about this. So not anyone who actually works on child abuse cases, not anyone who might actually understand the laws about this stuff in detail and know what needs to be done and how to get in treatment and how to look after the children, the actual victims in this situation. They didn't bother speaking to anyone like that. They just spoke to this friend who works with car dealers. Based on this conversation with this friend, no police report was ever filed, which is the most irresponsible thing I've ever heard. Actually, no, it's not. This story gets worse, but give it 30 seconds, you'll be shocked. God, this gets me so emotional and angry. So the police officer apparently said, since Jim Bob had already put Josh through a treatment program, there was nothing else to do, which is a load of crap. How about a real treatment program? How about get him in ongoing therapy? How about file a police report so it's on record? How about you remove him from being around children? How about you stop him from being able to ever work with children ever again? How about you actually punish him for his actions? There are lots of things you could do. I'm shocked by this response. And so instead of actually doing any of these things, they just let him back in the home and let him carry on in this position of power where he was literally helping homeschool the other young children in the house. Like, he literally was put back in a position of power with the children he molested. He was expected to help care for them, chaperone them, help homeschool them. So irresponsible. So I was shocked and I was angered by this, and I was like, well, why the hell is this police officer not doing anything? I read one article that apparently he went and gave Josh a stern talking to, whatever that means. And then I went and looked him up, and apparently this police officer and friend, very close friend of Jim Bob's, is now in prison himself. And he is serving a 56-year prison sentence for possession of CP. So maybe that's why he didn't want to punish Josh. Maybe that's why he didn't want to bring any light to this. Maybe this is why Jim Bob went to speak to him. Clearly he had some kind of sympathy with Josh. Clearly they're into the same things. It's revolting. It's all absolutely revolting. So anyway, once this came to the police's attention in 2006, the police investigating seemed to actually do a pretty decent job, and they interviewed all the children. They tried to make sure they were safe, and they wanted to press charges. They wanted to push this further, but no one was admitting to any incidents after a certain time in 2003. Everyone was like, nope, definitely didn't happen after that, nothing there. And it turns out it's because in the county where they lived, there is apparently a 3-year statute of limitations on sexual assault charges. So they were, all these incidents that were being reported and admitted to were just out of that time frame. And so he couldn't be punished anymore. And, oh, it's infuriating. Like, why is there a statute of limitations on these things, especially when it comes to molesting children? There should be no time frame for reporting. It should just... Oh, it frustrates the hell out of me. Sorry. So anyway, this meant that police couldn't take it any further, which is frustrating, because if the parents had reported it when they first knew, then all these later issues might have been avoided. But we'll get to those. So, during or not long after this police investigation into the Duggars and Josh, Josh went to a Christian homeschooling convention where, now 18 years old, he met another teenager called Anna. And it's not clear in any of the materials I read whether she was aware of the investigation into Josh and his past at the time when they met, or if she didn't know until many years later. I'm not sure. But they met and they began courting, which to these Quiverfull families means no touching, no kissing, no being alone together, definitely no sex, but lots of talking about marriage life and Christian counselling and so on. And this basically led to Josh and Anna getting married in 2008, which is the same year that the Duggars TLC show started to be shown, and which at the time was just 17 Kids and Counting. And when they met, I think Josh and Anna were both 18. Maybe she was 17, I can't, but they were roughly the same age, basically. Nothing too weird there. But she told him straight up that she didn't want to be engaged until she was at least 20 years old. So on her 20th birthday, Josh literally flew to another state to go and propose to Anna the first moment that he could, which may seem romantic to some, but knowing everything else that we know about Josh, this just kind of gives me groomer waiting until the day a kid turns 18 to have sex with them vibes. But maybe that's just me. I don't want to read into it too much. This is the least of what he's done, let's be honest. So he proposes to her on her 20th birthday. 2 months later, they are married, and today they're still together and have 7 children together, whose names all start with M. And I feel incredibly sorry for all of them and concerned for them. Not because of their names, but because of who their father is. So things stayed quiet for a little while. Jim, Bob and Michelle went on popping out babies, so did Josh and Anna, so did a few of the other Duggar children. And then in 2015, the 2006 police investigation into Josh and his actions became more public and more widely known than ever before. This is when people started to actually be like, oh wait, this happened? Wait, what? God knows why it didn't come out before. I don't even quite know why it came out at this point, but thank God it did. TLC took performative action by cancelling 19 Kids and Counting, but this didn't really mean much because they just, like I said earlier, repackaged it and renamed it and called it Counting On and focused on a few of the older girls instead of the parents. That's about it. And it was at this time that it became public that Josh had at least 5 alleged victims, including his sisters, Jill, Jesset, Ginger, and Joanna. Joanna, bless her, was only 5 at the time when he molested her, which is revolting. They themselves came forward to say that it was them and that somehow they'd forgiven their brother. At the time, Josh himself made a public statement saying, 12 years ago, as a young teenager, I acted inexcusably, for which I am extremely sorry and deeply regret. I hurt others, including my family and close friends. I confessed this to my parents, who took several steps to help me address the situation. Meanwhile, the family released a statement saying, with God's grace and help, Josh, our daughters, and our entire family overcame a terrible situation, found healing and a way forward. We are so pleased with the wonderful adults they have all become. However, just a couple of months after that became public, the Ashley Madison scandal happened. Now, if you're not aware of this, if you weren't around at the time, if you've just not been on the internet very much, Ashley Madison was a sort of paid dating website, except instead of matching single people with single people, it was designed for people who were married or in long-term relationships and partnerships to have discreet affairs. There's no innocent reason why you would be on a website like Ashley Madison. And because membership was paid, any members were there intentionally and with forethought. Now, at this point in 2015, the website was hacked and a whole list of their customers was just released and leaked online, and it was scandalous for so many people because all these celebrities were on there, lots of Christian people were on there, and it ruined families. It was a whole thing. It was bad. When this list of names was leaked, Josh Duggar was found to be on there as a paid member, which was part of the Affair Guaranteed service. Anyway, an affair kind of seems like the least of his problems at this point because that's nothing compared to child abuse, but it's important to talk about because it just shows that this squeaky clean image that the family likes to portray absolutely wasn't the truth. This idea that Josh was now this reformed, perfect, good Christian man is clearly not true. And it wasn't just that they were hiding parts of their life, because with public figures, that's to be expected. You still have to maintain a level of privacy. You don't need to tell the public anything. That is absolutely fine. It's just the hypocrisy of it all. It's like if I started making videos about being a vegan and then I was going off every Friday night and stuffing my face with a burger. That would be hypocritical, and that's basically what Josh was doing here. He was this public figure being like, I'm a squeaky clean family man, I'm so pure, I'm better than the rest of you. By the way, I'm having all these affairs behind my wife's back. And it's not just Josh, it's the whole family. They're being like, we're the perfect family, we always get it right, we believe in purity and chastity, and we're morally perfect, and we're better than you, and we judge anyone who does things differently to us, and we're going to campaign for other people to have their rights taken away if you don't share our moral values, you need to be like us because we're the best. They did this for decades. Like, that's not a joke, decades. And then it turns out that meanwhile, while they're portraying this, while they're telling everyone this, as a family, they are committing and covering up some of the most immoral acts imaginable. Not just the cheating, but the child abuse. And the thing is, like, when it comes to cheating and stuff, like, obviously it's not right, but if a person cheats in a moment of weakness, it's not good, it shouldn't be applauded, they still have issues, but I think in a way it can be forgiven as a genuine mistake. If the person speaks to their partner, works with their partner, actually tries to make up for it, actually tries to change, make sure they don't put themselves in that situation again, I think it is potentially redeemable. I don't think it's the end of the world. I think people make mistakes. However, if a person has spent their life saying, I'm purer than you, I'm better than you, I'm morally superior because I saved sex until marriage, then goes out and plots and pays to cheat repeatedly on his wife, that's a whole new level of low. It's just, I don't think that's forgivable. I don't think that's a one-off mistake. That's calculated. And I mean, it's the same with the kids stuff, right? Like, anyone else saying like, oh, I did stupid stuff as a teenager, it's fine, everyone does. Like, as teenagers, as kids, people do things, they mock people without understanding the consequences, they might make offensive jokes, they might get themselves in a bit of trouble. I think it's part of growing up, it's part of being a teenager, and if you're willing to accept that the things you did were wrong and then learn and grow from it, that's something that you can forgive. I don't think doing something bad when you're a teenager is necessarily like a cancelable offense if you show growth and improvement. However, molesting young children isn't a dumb teenage mistake. It's a whole other level of dangerous, disgusting behaviour that can't just be shrugged off. Teenage stupidity and child molestation are not the same thing, and they're not equatable. Following from the Ashley Madison reveal, Josh apparently checked himself into a long-term treatment centre for sex addiction, where he stayed until 2016. So he was there like 8 months or something, I think it was. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. Over the next few years, Josh was kind of in and out of the news and in and out of trouble because he was involved in various like financial scandals and scams and all sorts of dodgy stuff like that. And he was accused of assaulting a sex worker and a few other things. Some woman claimed she was pregnant by him, but then nothing ever came of that. And there's all these allegations, and it's it's really not clear if they go away because they were made up or because Josh and the family paid them off. I don't know, so I'm not going to say these allegations are true. It could have been someone just looking for publicity, or it could have actually happened. I don't know. But these things are all minor in comparison with what happened just 2 weeks ago when Josh was arrested and charged for receiving and possessing CP of children under the age of 12. He apparently pleaded not guilty. Now, my ex-father-in-law sort of used to work with the UK government to help track down people who distribute CP online, and absolutely sickening job, but a very, very important one. And I have a lot of respect for the people who do it, including him. He's a very, very good man and very intelligent, because as disgusting as the things they might have to see are, it's all a part of keeping kids safe in the long run and the long term. It's basically like the cyber stuff that he does in terms of tracking down who's distributing what came from where, trying to get hard evidence on people to be able to prosecute them and so on. And the thing to remember is that when they do get enough evidence to arrest someone, it's not just, oh, this person opened the wrong email attachment and something was bad in it. It's like they know that people have been actively searching for this stuff, and they know that this isn't just a one-off mistake where they opened the wrong file. They know that this was intentional, and they know that people have been collecting, viewing, and distributing this stuff. They follow the trails. It's not just you might have downloaded one image by accident in a pack. It's more of If you've been arrested for this, you've probably been doing this for a while, you've probably been actively looking for it, and you've probably been receiving this content repeatedly. Like, this isn't just it could have been a mistake thing. So what I'm saying is, I don't believe his not guilty plea for a second. The information on the bail hearing told us more about this case, and I'm gonna warn you, this next thing I have to say is disgusting, revoltingly hard to hear. So Josh has been arrested and charged on one count of receiving CP and one charge of possessing CP. But this doesn't mean he received or owned one image. What this actually means is he's been accused of, and I quote, being in possession of 265 images of naked minors, as well as a file that depicted child sex abuse involving children as young as 18 months and as old as 12 years. One of the people working on this is Homeland Security Investigations Special Agent Gerald Faulkner, who said that the images were, and again I quote, in the top 5 of the worst I've ever had to examine. And then there's lots of details in the news articles about how calculated Josh was about this. So his wife put like this software on the computer to like track and block him from like watching any porn or anything like that because of his sex addiction, and he did all this stuff like using programs to bypass this. He like partitioned hard drives so like, you know, this program couldn't see what was going on over here and all sorts of stuff like that. He, like, the records show that he would like lie about staying like at work and then go and download a bunch of stuff, and it wasn't just the child stuff. They found loads of like rape porn and violent stuff as well. This was a calculated man doing this on purpose and trying to hide it from his family. It's actually revolting. And I think what's incredibly telling are the differences in responses from his family. So his parents are basically saying nothing that could potentially condemn him. They're just burying their heads in the sand like they did back in 2002, 2003. They're not doing anything to help him. They're not seeing he's done anything wrong, and it's revolting. They said, the accusations brought against Josh today are very serious. It is our prayer that the truth, no matter what it is, will come to light, and that this will all be resolved in a timely manner. We love Josh and Anna and continue to pray for their family. One of his sisters, who was a survivor of his abuse, publicly wrote, we are disturbed to hear of the charges against Josh. While this case must go through the legal system, we want to make it clear that we absolutely condemn any form of child abuse and fully support the authorities and judicial progress in the pursuit of justice, which is a far better response. That's exactly what you should be doing. Like, yes. Like, for me, I don't care who you are in my life, how you're related to me, how I know you, how long you've been in my life. If you did something like this, gone. No. Don't want anything to do with them. There's no excuse for it. There's no forgiveness here. There's nothing. Just, meanwhile, his other sister Jess and her husband released a statement saying, we are saddened to hear of the charges against Josh. As Christians, we stand against any form of pornography or abuse, and we desire for the truth to be exposed, whatever that may be. Our prayers are with their family as they walk through this difficult time. And this angers me so much because of that flipping line, we stand against any form of pornography. No, this is not just a, oh no, I think porn's bad kind of thing. This is literally children being abused. It is not on the same level. I don't care if you like porn or if you don't like porn. Consenting adults being paid for their sex work is not the same as people exploiting and abusing and molesting children. Not the same. On no plane are they ever comparable. I mean, say what you want about the porn industry. It has its issues. There's definitely some misogyny in there. There are problems. There's exploitation. They are issues. But when it's consenting adults working in a fair environment, it doesn't make it bad just because it's sex work. And that is in no way comparable to children being hurt. I'm sorry, baby. Thank you for caring. I know, I love you. His other sister Joy had a much better statement to make, which included the recent accusations brought against Josh sadden us to our core. We have not wanted to be hasty in making any statements while still trying to process the news ourselves. We're especially heartbroken by the reality that there are children in this world being harmed and exploited. We ask for prayer for all those involved, and it's our continued prayer that the truth comes to light, which is exactly the point here. there are children being harmed and exploited. This is what the real problem is. I don't care if Josh is going through a tough time. I don't care if he's feeling a bit sad. I don't care how he's feeling. What matters are the children he hurt. They're what we need to be concentrating on now. And I'm quite angry and emotional about this story. I'm very protective of children like this. This whole story is disgusting. And I think it's safe to say that I do not think Josh Duggar is a good man. And I do not think his parents are good people, because they covered this up and they enabled this behaviour. I think Josh needs to be kept away from children. And I think his parents need to be kept away from children as well. I think this whole issue raises a lot of questions and discussion points about the Quiverfull movement in general. Because while no one made Josh this way, it's probably just how he was born, I do think his upbringing and being part of the Quiverfull movement made it worse, and his parents especially enabled him. The whole purity culture and shame around any kind of sexual expression probably made it harder for his victims to come forward and talk about what happened and ask for help when they needed it. Often, women are blamed in purity culture for any kind of sexual contact happening, and therefore it's easy to see why victims of sexual assault in purity culture often feel scared or guilty about coming forward when they shouldn't. They did absolutely nothing wrong. The parents covering this up and sending Josh to a Christian's home to build a house instead of getting him real counselling, taking to a church instead of psychologists, going to a friend who has been charged with instead of going through official channels. Everything the parents did was wrong from the beginning, and their religious beliefs influenced those decisions, and because of this they put more children in danger. Their inaction allowed him to keep molesting children. Their lack of consequences and lack of getting him any counselling allowed him to go on and exploit multiple children. It is revolting, and I hope his parents feel guilty about this. Anyway, I cannot talk about this anymore because it's hard. Editing this is going to be hard, my god. But that is me done for today. Please let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Do you want to go for a walk, Kubi? I think we need to be outside, don't we, babe? Alright, I'm going to go take the little one for a walk. But thank you for watching today. Please share your thoughts with me on this story down in the comments below. Let me know if there are any facets of this story that I've missed or not covered. Let me know what you think the parents should have done sooner. Let me know what you think should have happened to Josh when all this came to light in 2015 and even earlier in 2006. Just there's so much to talk about here, and I can't anymore. Thank you for watching today. I appreciate you guys a hell of a lot. And yeah, I'll see you again very soon.